Welcome, everyone, to the Southern California Genealogical Society's virtual Genealogy Jamboree Conference for 2022. This presentation is session J248, and our presenter is Barbara Tien. The title of her talk is How Artifacts and Heirlooms, like quilts and jewelry, can tell stories. Before we begin, I would like to note the following house rules for you. The material in this lecture is the intellectual property of the presenter and is protected by copyright. No screenshots or external audio or video recording is permitted. No sharing or group viewing is allowed. For those who have purchased the right to view this lecture, the recording will be available through October 31st, 2022. Our speaker, Barbara Tien, is a co-founder at Ponga.com and has always been passionate about family history, stories, and photographs. After a career in 2 high-growth networking companies, she co-founded Ponga to focus on sharing stories privately in pictures. She's an active speaker, blogger at Ponga.com, and posts regularly on social media as @PongaPictures and @Ponga. Now I'd like to turn the program over to our speaker, Barbara Tien.
Thank you so much. Your family heirlooms may carry with them the compelling stories your family shares. Here's how artifacts, heirlooms like quilts and jewelry can tell stories that add richness to your family story. In this course, I'll show you how to connect memories in these family artifacts and heirlooms to your family story. Once captured in oral histories and documents, you can use them to collect research, crowdsource stories, and curate your family legacy. Hello, I'm Barbara, one of the co-founders here at Ponga. I know that for many of you, this may be the first time you've heard of Ponga. We totally understand. We're a startup and quietly released our software during the spring of 2021 in the middle of the pandemic. So let me take a moment for a snapshot. Ponga creates a new way to organize your pictures quickly and easily so that you can use them to privately share stories with family and friends. Here at Ponga, we've always been about sharing the stories that matter. That's especially important to family historians and genealogists like you. We see things in photos, heirlooms of our family has passed down to us. Maybe it's our own memory about how your grandfather held the pipe in his hand, or the way your mother retold the story she'd heard about a carving on the pipe's bowl. The photographs, albums, and books we've been lucky enough to inherit host a treasure trove of stories. Preserving these artifacts in digital form not only creates a backup, it also creates new opportunities to explore those stories in context and share them with new generations. Modern technologies have created new ways to make connections and look at context. At Ponga, we're genealogists. We're technologists, not genealogists, but we have a deep personal interest in the stories of our own families. Today, there are wonderful companies out there applying AI and networks to capture images with modern cameras and scanners, edit and restore the resulting images with software, store photos to make them accessible from all of your devices, and print the images into new books and artifacts. But at Ponga, we realized that AI, computer vision, and the resources of the internet created these opportunities to connect. None was really using this technology to let you connect the context of your stories to your pictures. This is digital storytelling. This is Ponga, your stories shared privately in pictures. We started by using AI to detect and collect faces so we could quickly organize them into neat albums and label people in every photo. When you know who was there at the moment a photograph was taken, then you can explore the details to understand the context, the occasion, and the story behind it. In Ponga, we've created a way to tell that story by letting you use today's always connected internet to collect research from online archives and databases, crowdsource stories from family, friends, and acquaintances who can share the memories, and curate what you've learned into a legacy you can pass on to the next generation. In this course, you'll learn a new way to use photos to connect the artifacts and heirlooms you collected to stories. When anchored this way, the stories become so much more real and much more memorable. The photographs you've cherished are touchstones because of the narrative that puts them in context. Finally, as you weave a narrative through your photographs and documents, I'll show you how to share these digital stories to inspire the next generation with the lived history of their ancestors. As technologists, principles of data integrity and privacy guided us. The way we see it, stories bring us together and define us as families and as individuals. That makes them both important and sensitive personal truths. We realize that a story told on the sofa is not the same as one performed on stage, so privacy is imperative. Your Ponga pictures are private and accessible only to the people you invite as your guests. You are our member and you can invite as many private guests as you like. They're your guests, so they're free. These are your stories, so only you can share them. Your guests can't invite others, and there's no resharing. Preserving artifacts in digital form protects them not only from fire and flood, but also for future generations. You may have looked at a photo scanning as a responsibility to share a photo collection with siblings and cousins. But really, if you step back a bit, you'll see that photographs are just one kind of artifact. With today's extraordinary camera technologies, you can digitize almost any kind of object and use the photos to tell their stories. For example, this leather-bound 1937 album was passed to me by a cousin. It celebrated a golden wedding anniversary for my great-grandparents, whom I never knew. It combined snapshots, newspaper clippings, telegrams, and invitations to celebrate the occasion. Digitizing it as a book with the context of the pages, the cover, and the details in the books lets me better understand who these people were. I have a scrapbook the same great-grandmother started on October 11th, 1884. She was 2 months short of her 19th birthday, 3 years before she married my great-grandfather. That kind of context is revealed not in the photos, but in the notches and notes that go with these materials. Photographs capture us at a human level with details we didn't even have words for. The documents we collect can have the same effect as seals, ribbons, and handwriting. Their forms convey the priorities of the time. They connect us with history too. These objects are precious because they're effectively transporters for the family stories that connect us to past generations. We usually think of things like albums and scrapbooks, but family heirlooms also include artifacts of an earlier time like toys, jewelry, metals, furniture, quilts, and more, even tattered and chipped. These imperfect objects teach stories about real life and real love and your own family. Like the skin horse in the Velveteen Rabbit, sometimes the fur gets loved off. To give our children, grandchildren, and the generations that follow the best chance of hearing these stories, digital photography gives us a way to capture the essence of an object, then use software to associate the story with it. Let me show you a little of where we're going with this. At Ponga, we talk a lot about family photos and how we organize them using facial organization. This is important. We've applied the latest in AI and machine learning to detect and collect faces in your photos. People are important because they're like the characters in your stories. Even here in photos of people, objects and artifacts are important. In this screen recording of a Ponga picture, you see how I can explore who was in the picture. Once I click on a selection, in this case my grandmother, I dive into the story of her as my inspiration for genealogy and the family history book she self-published in 1948. With a paste, I brought in a PDF of that book right into the picture from an online archive. I sometimes think of Ponga like those string maps used by detectives sorting through what they know and how they know it. Each image can be connected to another by a scrap of context from anywhere on the web. Instead of bits of yarn and push pins and a corkboard, Ponga starts with your photograph or any kind of digitized image file, then lets you connect context by making selections and adding comments, recordings, images, and embedded links from anywhere on the web. Comments in context can be the basis for a conversation, revealing the color behind the connections. So let me start with an abstract view of how Ponga works. When you upload pictures to Ponga, we make a working copy of your image file and archive the original. We process the working copy into tiles so you can easily zoom in and out of the details with even a very slow connection. And that's great for several reasons. First, your original image file is preserved. If you want it back, you can have your full image file with any curated metadata you originally had. It also means that when you share pictures, you don't have to shove a large file into email or file transfer services. With Ponga, pictures are always private. You always have control of those links. When you explicitly invite someone, they're there as your guest. You can revoke the invitation just as easily. What they see is a web page, not an image file. So though they can take a screenshot, they can't download your full original. Processing your photos this way is just the start. I mentioned a powerful set of facial organization features that examine every image to detect and collect faces that appear to be the same person. Faces found in your pictures are presented to you in a gallery where you can put names to faces. When you do, selections are added to each face in every picture, and the pictures are sorted into neatly labeled albums. Now, with your photos sorted into albums by person, you can focus on the objects by adding facts, stories, and references as easily as a click and type. Since pictures and albums are links, the same picture can be in multiple albums. That makes it very easy to find and share your pictures. It also makes it easy to add stories, and this is the really important part. Ponga lets you manually add your own selections to even the teeniest detail in an image. It can include people, but it doesn't have to. You can use these selections to point out details that matter to you, that are part of your story. So let's see that in action. In digital form, being able to show or hide the selection boxes makes you focus on context. Mouse overs show you a preview of the content in each selection box, including not only names, but also objects. In this example, we're looking at grandmother's collar where a cameo is pinned. In fact, my mother gave me that cameo and I've given it to my daughter. It's a great example of adding context from a photograph to an object you've inherited in real life. Now, this is actually a picture that we share at Ponga with guests curious about exploring Ponga on their own. It's entirely free. Just pop over to ponga.com/explore. And to make that easy for you now, I'll give you this handy QR code. Just point your camera app at the code and tap the web link that appears. That'll take you to ponga.com/explore. Add your email and we'll get you the instructions to invite you to this picture as our free guest. Your paid Ponga membership lets you tell stories using your own pictures. Here we are in the example picture included with each new member or guest account. To upload, I just go to Upload Pictures. If I weren't yet a member, I'd be presented with an opportunity to purchase my membership. I then drag and drop even a whole folder of pictures. You'll see them all appear with little thumbnail images and a preview of their size. Then hit Upload. Notice the pictures just float off the screen. When it's done, the entire batch of photos is collected into a single time-stamped album I can easily rename to reference the source of my image. Within a few minutes after my upload, I get an email telling me my gallery is ready. The gallery is where I put names to faces. Now just strap in while I answer the question, do you know who this is? If I just know, I hit the green Add Name button. The name I add will be applied as a label to that person's face in that picture and all others in which that person's face appears. An album will also be created to collect all of the pictures of that person. If I name someone before, their name appears in the drop-down menu. If I'm not sure who it is, that's okay. I've got two other options, the yellow skip button or the red ignore button. Back in the library, you see the full collection of photos I've added. I mentioned that a comment is added in every picture where a face matches those named in the gallery. Notice the albums down the left side. There's an album for each person named. Now this is my dearest great aunt Dorothy. Notice that this album includes every picture I have of her. Open that picture and I see my great aunt's face with a selection box around it. When I mouse over it, the reference portrait I used for her name appears. Mousing over the faces of the other two people in this photo shows my grandfather when he was young and his firstborn daughter, my aunt. Pictures and albums are links, and a single picture can appear in multiple albums. It also means that when you share a picture, you're sharing access to a link. To share a picture, all you do is tap the Share panel, and once there, you'll see a field where you can add one or more email addresses, hit Tab to enter a personalized note, then hit Send Invite. You can even circle back to adjust the view levels. Your free guests can get a formatted message with a preview, title of the picture, and a little explanation of how to get started. That gives you a high-level view of how Ponga works with facial organization, digital storytelling, and private sharing. You can now quickly see how useful Ponga can be in sorting through your family pictures and sharing them with siblings and extended family. Our Ponga members use this capability in all sorts of different ways in their family history and genealogy work, including collecting research, crowdsourcing stories, and curating a family legacy. We truly believe that weaving a narrative through photographs and artifacts can inspire the next generation of lived history of their ancestors. To show you how, let me start with the example picture included in every new account, whether you're a free guest or a paid member. This is simply a photograph of a collection of my family heirlooms. I go to the toolbar and tap on the Select tool. Notice that the mouse turns to crosshairs, release the mouse, and a sidebar appears with a comment box at the bottom. Now, this is the especially fun part. This little comments box is where you can add context to the picture, a little like the way you can point out details in an object to a young nephew. They can see it's a rooster, but the story worth telling is the one that's not obvious. Tell that story. You can add a few words of text. With a mic handy, you can add comments in your own voice. And the image you attach, go ahead, paste something in, and then hit post. To add external content like a home movie stored on Permanent or YouTube, just get the link and paste it in. Wait a second or two, and the external content pops right in. Hit post, and there it is, where you can sit and play it. So let's take a look at another example. In this case, a fabulous quilt created as a project in the small community of Wardsville, Ontario. They used this quilt to tell the story of the founding of the village in the years leading up to the War of 1812 and the American incursions into the territory that would become Canada. Each panel of the quilt carries a story, and Ponga lets you start from that panel and tell the story. It's a fascinating story that this community has built on to create the Longwood Barn Trail for American tourists to follow today. The very fact that Ponga works in your browser creates another set of useful benefits. One of the most easily overlooked is the simple translate.google.com extension for Chrome. Here are the 4 simple steps. Use Chrome. I recommend it anyway for a variety of compatibility reasons. Install the Google Translate extension and activate it. Then just paste in copy in a foreign language into your Ponga comment window. In this case, my default language is English, and I paste in Spanish, and then poof, as soon as I hit post, my words are instantly translated. The same is true for your guests who might prefer a different language. Though the comments are in one language, here English, when the picture is viewed in the browser in a different default language, they see your comments in their preferred language. So a few best practices to keep in mind. First, When working with these touchstone photos that everyone remembers, think first about what it is that makes that photo so important. Tell those stories first. Your detail might go into the facts that inspired or disputed a myth. That frankly makes it more interesting. Know the difference and be honest about your role as a narrator. Keep context in mind. And finally, remember that imagery communicates powerfully. Use that power wisely and consider what it meant then and now. At Ponga, we discovered Ponga pictures create 3 ways to use artifacts and heirlooms to share stories. First is to collect research, then connect your findings to evidence. What you capture might validate or question previous findings. It might also simply add color commentary. Second is to crowdsource more stories, like a digital platter passed around, asking questions of relatives and experts, see what they think or what they know. Third is to capture the stories you've collected to create a curated, produced work. You can use Ponga to ensure that stories are heard and legacies are appreciated. In digital form, this kind of sharing can happen in person, remotely, or captured in online live sessions like Zoom. If you're interested in learning more and exploring a Ponga picture on your own, visit us at ponga.com/explore, and we'll get you started with your own account as our guest. Thank you very much for this opportunity. To learn more about Ponga, please visit our website at ponga.com. Engage with our Audibot in the website to ask questions. You can also follow and subscribe on social media at Ponga and at Ponga Pictures, and join us in events at ponga.com/events. Please note that I have a handout for this course as well. If there's any reason you weren't able to get it, just reach out to me at barbara@ponga.com. Thank you again very much for this opportunity. To learn more about Ponga, please explore our website at ponga.com, engage with our Audibot on the website, ask questions. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Barbara, for introducing us to today's innovative digital technologies and how we can use them to visually tell our stories. To our audience, thank you for joining this session. We know you have other presentations to view, and we are sure you will find them just as fascinating as this one.